Okay, so at the astrological pre-conference, along with the horoscope reading of the Italian nation, a general overview of the nature of the nations as living beings was presented. Here we pursue and expand it further and will present a pattern to order them in a harmonic system of relationships, according, we could say, to a 3rd plus 4th ray key and mode to get the Holy Seven. The Harmonic System of Nations is actually an attempt to apply the 1-3-7-49 hierarchical model to give a right form to the idea of an international order and organism. The teaching tells us that humanity as a planetary center is a collective unity constituted by and organized into 7 main races and human types, and many ethnic groups and peoples. These parts or organs of the 4th human kingdom are driven by the evolutionary law, despite the prevailing separativeness, to relate to one another through increasingly comprehensive systems towards organic globality. That is, from isolated and local units to a potential single interactive community. We have already seen this picture by Francis Donald. Wonderful. So as we know, in its either vicious or virtuous use, the technological revolution of internet clearly proves this unified field. Right now, mainly on an instinctive level of emotions and thoughts, but in due course, also on a more and more conscious or healthy level, like here and now. Or a global powerful phenomenon like the coronavirus. Virus, by the way, meaning poison in Latin, while vir means force, man, and interesting close relationships. Poison, the scorpion's bite, to make the force of man come forth, Taurus, through obstacles towards the stars, says Paracelsus, per aspera ad astra in Latin. So again, this axis of 4th ray, this zodiacal equator, Scorpio, Taurus, the perfect 4th ray. At present, mankind still needs the law of pain to recognize our unified field and oneness, namely conflicts, in order to make the 4th principle of harmony as our triumphant destiny. But we move seemingly slowly and yet at an accelerated pace towards the idea of right human relationships to work out the Aquarian primary idea of brotherhood. The forms through which these new and impending ideas must take shape and manifest have yet to be created, and that takes time, for they are built by the power of thought and due process of educating the public consciousness until that consciousness becomes confirmed conviction and demonstrates as an immovable public opinion. Fear, foreboding, and concern are but temporary and will give place to that order, rhythmic imposition of the needed idealism, which will be applied eventually by love, motivated by wisdom, in cooperation with intelligence. All will be actuated by a dynamic, not a passive, will to good. That's everything in this sentence. Love, wisdom, intelligence, and will to good. So in the Destiny of the Nations, we find this quote. There are 5 ways or government, we could say. And the fifth, so it said, the major ideas in the world today fall into 5 categories. And this is the last one. The idea of a spiritual hierarchy which will govern the people throughout the world and will embody in itself the best elements of the monarchical, the democratic, the totalitarian, and the communistic regimes. Most of these groups of ideologies have latent in them much beauty, strength, and wisdom, and also a profound and valuable contribution to make to the whole. Each will eventually see its contribution embodied under the control of the hierarchy of the lords of compassion and the masters of the wisdom. The restoration of the ancient Atlantean control by the spiritual forces is still in the future, but the Aquarian Age will see the restitution of this inner and spiritual guidance on a higher turn of the spiral. So having fixed the vision of the future government, the real government, first rate, let us now consider the fundamental role of the nations to build consciously the hierarchical one humanity. And here are again some concepts already presented at the pre-conference. So as we said, nations are presented by the esoteric teaching as a temporary manifestation of human races and sub-races, those septenary centers of the 4th human hierarchy. They are actual living, magnetic, and conscious collective units, equipped with a more or less manifested soul or higher nature, a more or less integrated personality, and a body of territorial expression. All of the great nations are controlled by 2 rays, just as is the human being. With the smaller nations, we need not concern ourselves. All the nations are controlled by a personality ray, which is the dominant, potent, and main controlling factor at this time, and by a soul ray, which is sensed only by the disciples and the aspirants of any nation. This soul ray must be evoked into an increased functioning activity by the new group of war servers. And here we are. For this is one of their main objectives and tasks. Those rays which govern a particular nation and which are at this time actively working are very potent, either materially or egoically. Some of the problems may be due to the fact that certain rays governing certain nations are not at this time active. So there is also a vibratory interplay under the great law of attraction and repulsion, which has much to do with the intercourse and relationships between nations. So this coming age will be as predominantly the age of group interplay, group idealism, and group consciousness, as the Piscean age has been of personality unfoldment and emphasis, personality focus, and personality consciousness. So the isolated, this is a quote from Rays Initiations 108. So the isolated units of the one humanity, the nations, must today rise to the international group interplay, idealism, and consciousness, to their planetary or spiritual function, to ensure that the global organism is safe and sound at the service of evolution. And the initiative, as I said at the pre-conference, remember, of the Esoteric United Nations, for example, is precisely and rhythmically responded to this urgent need to wake up the spirit of the nations towards their planetary service. Past and present cultures and civilizations are of great value. This is again decay from exteriorization of hierarchy. The peculiar genius of each nation must be evoked for the enriching of the entire human family. The new civilization must have its roots in and emerge out of the past. New ideals must come forth and be recognized. Every nation, great and small, with the minorities given equal and proportionate rights, should pursue its own individual culture and work out its own salvation as seems best to it, but that each and all should develop the realization that they are parts of one corporate whole, and that they must contribute to that all they have and are. Banal concepts, but so urgent to realize. This concept is already present in the hearts of countless thousands and carries with it great responsibilities. These realizations, when intelligently developed and wisely handled, will lead to right human relations, economic stability based on the spirit of sharing, and to a fresh orientation of man to man, of nation to nation, and of all to that supreme power to which we give the name God. Externalization of hierarchy 376 and 77. So humanity itself must be the goal of interest and effort, and not any particular nation or empire. All this has to be wrought out in a practical, realistic manner, divorced from visionary, mystical, and impractical dreams. And all that is done must be founded on one basic recognition: human brotherhood, expressing itself in right human relations. Nations, and not so much the current transitory peoples that represent them, are therefore intended as living organs in the process of progressive coordinated cooperation for the health and development of the humanity organism, which is in its turn, oh sorry, I closed the window, there is dog barking. The beautiful of life. Okay. So nations are living organs in the process of progressive coordinated cooperation for the health and development of the humanity organism, which is in its turn a center organ of the planet organism, and so on in the all-encompassing universal brotherhood. So the Harmonic System of Nations, or the order of the Esoteric Nations, united in the name of the common good, is certainly one of the most urgent ideals to be built here and now, consciously all together, through the projection of the most beautiful vision of the one humanity. And we do it with the help and because of our subjective or soul-made detection through our creative imagination, the medium of the higher mind, to unite the world of ideas and ideal formulas with that of the forms of the new culture and civilization. Every nation which has sufficiently integrated its personality, that is, stabilized its individuality with respect to the planetary community, will progressively know its potential and possibilities. And the astrological key and their constituent rays, as well as the examination of the virtues and defects of their peoples, their talents and fragility, can illuminate the unitary path to follow, converging towards the one in function of the planetary common good. In particular, we here are presented three hypotheses of a right sorting or harmonic arrangement of the system of nations according to the 49 metrics of ray energy combinations or functions, the model of hierarchical organization of life and of its agents or builders. According to this view, as it was presented last year at the conference, The Pythagorean lambdoma, which is this picture, is lambda is the letter L, which is exactly this form in Greek. And this is a lambdoma, or a 7, in this case, a 7 times 7 matrix ruled by the 7 rays of life. And this is a scientific and magic way to square the circle of any idea. Here, as I presented many times, of the evolutionary plan, for example, a matrix of 49 planetary goals or energy vortices as a first systemic formulation of its Buddhic energies or impulses, the ideas, onto the causal and fiery world of monastic thought, therein fixing its living 7 main centers or goals taken in the central axis, central diagonal, 7 main goals taken from the teachings, and the 42 minor ones. The 49 centers or fires of Brahma, of any celestial idea, have to be activated by group soul attestation and meditation. And in this systemic perspective, through their 49 relevant functions and ideal formulas that the heart and minds, or nations, have to translate in a harmonic action, that is, into a spiritual coordinated cooperation for the common good. We are going to share thoughts in detail about this during the workshop later. So you see here the nations with the rays indicated by decay associated to the relevant goal, and just put according to their soul and personality rays. So the plan or the planetary order, as any idea, is a living entity, a substantial energy, and an energetic substance, as decay indicates, which requires a harmonic human system of relationships to be worked out. So the potency of the primary Aquarian idea of brotherhood precipitates through the ideal of the right or harmonic relationships. In the following 3 hypotheses, the central diagonal, identified with the 7 main centers of the 4th human hierarchy on Earth, is filled according to 3 different perspectives, while the 42 subsidiary boxes are by the nations, placed, as I said, according to their indicated soul and personality rays. We can identify this 7-fold central axis differently according to the 3 aspects of spirit, consciousness, and substance. So the first hypothesis, the substantial one. Continents. You see in the diagonal, the 5 or 7 continents. Continents are indicated as the substantial form of the 7 planetary centers. And here is a quote from Esoteric Astrology 426. 5 races under the influence of the 5 signs produce the externalizations, which are called the 5 continents: Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, America. These 5 continents are to the planetary life what 5 major endocrine glands are to the human being. They are related to 5 centers. As we know, 5 already manifested, 7 potential. So here, Arctic as a head center at the 1-1 box, Europe as a heart center, North America throat center, Asia Ajna center, Africa sacral center, South America solar plexus center, Oceania or Antarctic base center. These are hypotheses that we could share and better together during the workshop or in the future. let's go to the second hypothesis, the consciousness one. The consciousness aspect of the 7 centers of the 4 human hierarchy is represented by the 7 ray groups of initiates operating through our higher nature or these 7 egoic groups on monastic level. They were, are, and will educate and initiate their affiliated souls in the indicated 7+7 occult schools, as written in Letters of Occult Meditation, intended as cradles of the initiatory seeds of the future culture and humanity. So here is a quote. Only those nations which originally had a training school for the mysteries, with 3 exceptions, will be again during the earlier stages permitted national schools. The exceptions are Great Britain, Canada, and United States, and Australia. And even these exceptions might be considered only one. The case of Australia, for the other 2 in Atlantean days had their occult foundations when they formed part of the earlier continent. So here along the central axis, we had the race attributions of the 14 initiatory schools. And we are going to go into details in the workshop. But the quite interesting also for our future action as new group of world servers. Okay. And for the spirit aspect, we go back to this. We have to consider the 5 inlets. So Geneva for the European continent, including Russia, London, the British Commonwealth of Nations, New York for the American continent, Darjeeling, Central and Western Asia, Tokyo for the Far East. Within the continent of Africa, one will someday be found, and later still, many millions of years ahead, another will be discovered in the region of Australia. It is, however, with the 5 centers in this 5th root race that we are concerned. Okay. Here they are. Through these 5 places and the eras in their neighborhood, the energy of the 5 rays pours forth, and these 5 rays in the destiny of the nations decays as they are the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 6th, and 7, now manifest, conditioning the world of man, leading to results of profound significance and determining the trend of events. These again, the attribution of rays are in a hypothesis. The 5 cities, which are 4 centers up the spine and the ajna center. 4 centers up the spine and the ajna center in the body of humanity and of individual man. They are living vital focal points of dynamic force. So here is the 3rd hypothesis with the 5 inlets as decay indicates as the ajna center, the 4 boxes. Here, London indicated again as a hypothesis throat center, Geneva heart center, Tokyo sacral center, New York solar plexus, and Australia a future base center, and Africa, or maybe things will change again in millions of years, head center. Okay. Okay. The 5 cities, which are the exoteric expression of the esoteric center of force and through which the hierarchy and Shambhala are seeking to work, are the correspondence in the planetary body, as we read, yes, to the 4 centers up the spine and the Ajna center in the body of humanity. Okay, they are living vital focal points of dynamic force to a greater or less extent. Some predominantly express soul energy and some personality force. Some are influenced by Shambhala, Darjeeling and Geneva, and some by the hierarchy. Okay. So these charts, even if incomplete, these 3 options allow us to compare the talents and tasks of each nation and to order their functions at the service of global development, according to these 3 different levels of planetary septenaries, of centers, schools, or continents. The mission of true humanity is to learn intelligent love, or the coordinated collaboration for a common purpose, another way of defining the hierarchical order. It's up to each of us, therefore, to contemplate this or some other form of the hierarchical model of the world, where no nation commands or suffers, but where each people assumes, once able to do so, responsibility for their real nature and function, in harmony and accordance with that of others. By the way, we can see also the symmetry between, for example, Italy 6-4 and Japan 4-6, or between Germany 4-1 and 1-4 India. And above their mottos, we can also consider this formulation of this table of the plan, as it was called, to consider also their occult function as a human soul, one soul, because these are soul functions, of course. Okay. So, and as the vision deepens, it will be necessary to probe its profound implications, symmetries, and correspondence in national peoples or in international relations. For now, let's ventilate our hearts and minds with this common dream, the real possibility of an United Nations order at the service of the good and of the global new culture and civilization, the idea of a hierarchical humanity of brotherhood, which is a hierarchical community. And in here, this beautiful quote: life is loving synthesis in action, and of that there is little today in demonstration. We have life in activity, but love based on realized unity and leading to expressed synthesis is still absent. The vision of it is, however, upon the horizon of many, for in these days many are attaining sight and light is pouring in. Revelation will come when the world disciples and initiates have perfected the art of revelation. And I would like to thank the previous, also of the last days presentations, because we really demonstrate we are so beautiful, so rich, so united, and we are a power station, a true magnet to change things on Earth. So let our light shine to build the one humanity. And I close with this wonderful piece by Shakespeare that Mauro, the translator who is helping behind the scenes to translate to the Italian co-workers which are following gave to me. So thank you, Mauro. Heaven doth with us as we with torches do, not light them for themselves. For if our virtues didn't go forth of us, 'twere all alike as if we had them not. So thank you, and